Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to the Transporter Room. Today, I'm beyond excited to be joined by Cirroc Lofton, a multifaceted talent whose contributions to television and podcasting have left an indelible mark on audiences around the globe. Best known for his heartfelt portrayal of Jake Sisko in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Lofton brought nuance and relatability to one of science fiction's most beloved characters, earning him a lasting place in the hearts of fans. From his early beginnings as a child actor to his dynamic roles in The Hoop Life, Soul Food, and beyond, Lofton's career reflects a deep passion for storytelling and a remarkable ability to connect with viewers. Today, Lofton continues to inspire through his engaging podcast, The Seventh Rule, where he explores the Star Trek universe with fellow enthusiasts, offering fresh perspectives and heartfelt reflections. A charismatic speaker and cherished convention guest, he brings warmth, humor, and authenticity to every interaction. Please join us in celebrating Cirroc Lofton, a true luminary whose brilliance shines both on and off the screen. So without further ado, let's beam him in. Hey, Cirroc, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Chris. How you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Thank you for coming on the show and doing this for me today.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome here at the Transporter Room. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
it's nice to hear my resume read off.
Yeah, I when I did an interview with Connor and Dom, Connor said, "You've taken a page out of Dominic's book of doing intros." I'm like, "Yeah, kind of, a little bit."
It's good.
But hey, I just want to let everybody know. I just want to let you know that it has been a joy to work with you on the Seventh Rule and to get to actually meet you back at the convention in Dallas last year. It was a blast.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
oh,
it was
thank
fun.
yeah.
It
I
was
mean,
fun meeting you too, man. It's always good when we get together and meet in person and you know get to
oh
have
yeah.
drinks, share laughs.
Oh, I know, man. I wish you could have. I would have loved for you to be able to make it to dinner with us that night, but I know you were kind of busy and had some other things going on. So it'd have been fun. But hey, next time, maybe in
Yeah.
Chicago when we're up there.
Chicago
If you,
coming up. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I like to, start off with like background. We get to the Star Trek stuff in a little bit here because everybody knows about all the Star Trek things. But, I just was wondering, did you always have a passion for performing when you were growing up, or did it just kind of just find you?
Um, A passion. Yeah, I think it just found me. I was selected to do this play, and I, I think you realize you're good at something, um, by based on the feedback and based on your own personal feelings. So when you know you're good at something, regardless of what that thing is, something clicks inside of you, like, hey, I'm good at this, and I think I'm better than the average person at doing this particular thing, whatever that is, and for me, that was acting and being on stage. So performing was something that I felt naturally good at. It didn't take much effort for me to both know the memorization of the lines and choreography of however the scene was going to play out. So that's really how I just kind of stumbled into it by figuring out I'm pretty good at it.
Hey, that's all that matters. You were good and you are great. And so, um, can you share with us what your first job or your first job was, your actual acting job was?
Do you mean getting paid?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
The
okay.
paid job, the
That's
first paid job.
paid job, yeah. Um, my first job was for the United States Army, and I was playing this. I was a kid at the time. Obviously, I was 10 years old, and yeah, I was playing, this kid growing up who eventually would join the military for the Army, and it was one of those be all that you can be, one of those moments back in the day when they had that as their advertising campaign.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to see if I can find that video. It's gotta be on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
that's
my
the magic of YouTube. Everything still exists. But yeah, that was my first job, and My first audition, my first job, it was all of the above, and then just kept kind of going from there. Um, as a child actor, just kept going from there.
Cool. So, as a child actor, were you able to stay in public school, or did you have to get tutors on the set? How does that work?
Yeah, you get an option actually. They gave me an option. They said I could be tutored permanently. When I did Deep Space Nine, I could have been essentially just enrolled in tutoring exclusively, getting schooled on the set.
Mhm.
But I chose to do the option of balancing public school and working at the same time. So I was in public school. I was enrolled in public school while I was working.
Oh, man, that's gotta be kind of I mean, I would think it'd be kind of fun, but also I'm just like, "Man, I wonder what the kids were like when they finally realized, 'Oh, man, he's on DS9. He's a'"
Yeah, wasn't that cool at the time, I can say. Star Trek and sci-fi culture has become more mainstream and more popular than it was, I would say, during the time in the 90s, early 90s when I started to get involved. There was still a little bit of a uh, stigmatism behind the quote unquote nerd sci-fi franchise culture, and so there was that stigmatism that didn't allow for people to kind of openly identify as a Star Trek fan in that kind of way. So actually, I got more ridicule than praise from my side of the world because I was in a urban side of town here in Los Angeles, and the people there were too cool for Star Trek, so they made fun of it.
Well, that's not the case anymore, I don't think. I really think, sci-fi has become, well, not just popular, it's become mainstream, it's become popular. We had shows out there that dealt with it all the time, like The Big Bang Theory and some others who made it cool to be a sci-fi kid and all the other stuff like that. So, that's good. Um,
Well,
so
there is also, the thing about the way time has passed, from my observation, is a lot of those people that were Star Trek fans at that time have gone on to become successful professional adults in all spheres of the world, from teaching to computers to science. We just have all kinds of people represented in various workplaces. And so, because of that, um, you see the successes of people that have invested in Star Trek that actually has translated to personal successes in their lives. And I think that has also made it more so popular because people say, well, if this guy's, the guy who started this tech company or this guy who did this, and he's also a Star Trek guy, then it shows that the principles, the philosophy behind it actually can translate to success in somebody's own personal life.
agreed. I mean, I would say that a good majority of, for example, everybody that works at NASA have been a Star Trek fan of some form or fashion, or a sci-fi fan in some form or fashion. With, again, most of them being Star Trek, and so, and I mean, how I can't even count probably a number of, we've had astronauts on the show multiple times. So yeah, it's made a difference. And so that's what's so cool, that how, this series has led to so many different things in life. And we'll get farther into that a little bit later in the show because that's farther down my list. But I did want to touch on some of the stuff I learned at the conventions from just talking, just listening to your panel, which was I'm going to say this: anybody that goes to a convention that Cirroc is talking at, go to his panel. It is phenomenal. It was great. Um, but one thing that I learned was I didn't know you owned a restaurant and a bar at one time in your life. I was like, that honestly was just I kind of got a chuckle. I might have been sitting by Ryan. I don't remember or released. I might have been sitting near them that time, but I just got a laugh because I'm like, wait a second, he's in the restaurant business, just like his, on-screen grandfather was or was.
Yeah, a lot of parallels like that in my life, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know if it's art imitating life or life imitating art, or which comes first. But I guess in this particular case, they wrote that for the character, and then I ended up living it out in real life. Um, and I studied business when I was at UCLA. I was a business econ major. Um, so half economics, half business, and some of the things that I learned, or what I really wanted to do with the education was to be in business to some degree or another, and I didn't know what business that was, but I wanted to be a businessman, and so when the opportunity came with my now ex-wife to get into the restaurant business and venture into that. I thought it was something that I wanted to do and be involved with, and um, so then I set path on doing that, and it was very fun. It was a lot of work. It is a lot of work. I have my hat goes off to everybody in the food service industry. Everybody works hard from back behind in the kitchen all the way to the front of the house. Uh, there is no moment of just relaxation, really. I mean, if you're busy, obviously, and you're always preparing for the next day. You're always, there's just never a dull moment. And I like the entertainment aspect of it. So the part of it that I liked the most was actually playing the role of Quark behind the bar, and getting it inside good information from people, and playing matchmaker.
Oh, that's so funny. Yes. Oh my God, Cork. Oh my God, that was I didn't. I don't think I knew that part, but that's a good add. That's something good to add to that. Oh my God. Um, and something else, so I knew you went to UCL, I knew you went to college, but I forgot that it was a business econ degree. And I don't know, I was kind of wondering if it was a history degree because you, my friend, were a pretty big history buff from what I remember us talking about during one of our meetings but last year. I just wow, you were rattling off just facts and things that I didn't even know. Um, and it was that just something that you just picked up because just I hate to say randomly, but how did what got you into become like really in depth into history?
Well, I can say that first of all, I had some really good teachers at the schools that I went to. Um, I had guys like Mr. Shackman, who was at my junior high school. Um, I had a professor named Mr. Safier at Fairfax High School, and they made it fun for me to listen to history, and they made the subject fun to listen to and learn from because they were themselves good personalities, and they had the ability to make things interesting, by the way they would talk. And so I think that's the beginning of my interest in it, listening to those classes and having those great teachers. And then I began to have a curiosity about my own origin and history, about myself and where, my parents' origin and background. And so I started to dig into that kind of a history, and that led to other kinds of things like biblical history. And so one thing always kind of leads to another, and you just keep going down the the rabbit hole until you can't take anymore.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I enjoyed listening to your history. Just that discussion we had, it was pretty pretty eye opening. So I thank you for that. um, so now we kind of get into a little bit more of the the fun stuff, the podcast conventions and your Star Trek history, real quick here. Um, you know, I know some of the actors did the conventions while they were working and after. So when did you start? Did you do it while you were still on the show, or was it after the show ended when you finally got into the convention scene?
It was as the show was going on. I wasn't on the first go around. I guess that it took me a couple of years before I actually got into the convention scene. Um, Maybe after my second, but during the second year, I think I did the first convention. Yeah, I mean, it was like a whole nother world that I wasn't really aware that existed, for the
Hmm.
fan base. And you think you go to work, you work on the set, and you finish, and you're done, and you go home. And Star Trek is one of the few franchises out there that has this celebration of it that happens on a almost weekly event somewhere in the country or in the world. Um, and yeah, and people are celebrating, and I think that's one of the great phenomenons of the show. And I think that again lends itself to the idea that the value systems that they talk about are lifestyle choices. And if you have those value systems, you will be celebrating the lifestyle that you live in, the way of getting together with like-minded people to enjoy the thing you love.
True. And I can only imagine what it was like, being a young adult doing your first conventions, and what those experiences were like, especially having that interaction with the fans for the first time. I don't even want to, I can't even fathom that, you know, what it was like when they all start coming to get your signature. And I mean, I know when we were talking, your hand has to get tired after a while.
Yeah, I mean that was back in the day. It's not so tiring anymore, man. We'll see. But yes, there was a time when it was long lines and you would get tired. My first convention, as a matter of fact, was like that, and that was here in Pasadena, California, at a creation convention. And I remember going to that and saying, "Damn, all of these people are like here, dressed up and in makeup," and and I'm like, "Wow, this is crazy. This is unbelievable." Um, and then they said, "Well, you're going to be signing," and I'm like, oh, "All right, cool. Where, Then I saw the line, and I was the longest line I've ever had, and I was like, "What the hell is all those people here for?" They're like, "They're here for you. They're waiting in line for you." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be a long day." And I remember signing and signing and signing for hours and hours and hours, and I couldn't like crack the line, you know? I couldn't crack the line. And eventually, and for some reason, they had me sitting outside. I don't know why, but at this particular convention, I was sitting outside signing. I think probably because the line was too big. So they had me sitting outside. And, uh, and so it got dark. It was dark. It was starting to get dark, and it was becoming, it was nighttime. A- And for everybody out there that doesn't know, the convention usually ends around 5 or 6. And I think it was 7:30, and the line is still, I might have gone halfway through the line, and they cut off they cut off the people, they cut the line, and I was like, hey, I can't even see anymore, it's dark out here, and and the convention's over. So, it ended an hour ago. So, like, you know, I'm gonna be done signing, and I remember that they cut somebody off and said, "See, Cirroc has to go." I'm a kid, mind you, at this point. I'm only 15 years old or whatever. So I'm like, I gotta go home and eat and go to, get ready for the next day. I might have to work the next day. I don't know. But but yeah, somebody was mad about getting cut off, and that guy rushed the table and like tried to, I don't know, grab me or something. But yeah, so they tackled him. It was like a really kind of a miniature traumatizing experience for my first convention as a kid, to have this grown guy just cussing at me for, I've been waiting all day for you, and I felt bad for everybody who was waiting all that time, but I don't know, I'm not gonna stay
Yeah.
there till midnight,
No, 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 not at all.
So
Yeah.
I did my best, but somebody was mad, and so that guy, the first person that got cut off, attacked me. That was my first convention. Then I stopped doing them for a while. I said, I think I'm gonna.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd gone back. I don't know if I would have ever gone back. Oh my
Uh,
God.
but honestly, never been attacked since. Never really had bad experience with any of the fans. It was just that one guy that one time. Uh, and it's
He was
funny because
probably.
yeah, it's funny because I ran into the guy who stopped him recently. It was like 2 years ago. I saw him at Creation in Vegas, and he says to me, the guy now is old because I was 15. This was like 30 years ago, right? And the guy now, has a cane, and he's an older man with a great beard, and he was wearing a biker vest, and he looked like a badass guy, a pretty tough guy. And he walks up to me and he says, "Do you remember me?" And I looked at him. I was like, "You look familiar, but I just, I don't remember." He says, "I'm the guy that stopped the other guy who tackled you. I was standing next to you when you were signing, and when he lunged towards you, I pushed him back." And I was like, "Oh man, thanks for thanks for doing that for me." 30 years ago. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh my God. No, yeah. I That would not be fun, especially at 15. So
Yeah.
I'm glad he protected you, and I'm glad you came back eventually to the convention scene.
Yeah, I did, and
No.
I haven't had bad experience since that.
Yeah.
That was just one guy who really got upset and was blowing off steam. But for the 99.9% of the other Star Trek fans out there, they're extremely sweet and gracious and generous and polite. They've written me wonderful letters. They've given me amazing gifts. I have some of those gifts behind me, including this, and I mean, just people are just amazing, and the time that they take out to be thoughtful, to be concerned about my well-being is amazing. So I love all the fans, and I enjoy going to the conventions more than ever.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we enjoy having you there. Believe me. um, so we're gonna get real quick into the podcast. I know I hate to say you probably talked about it a million times, but about the seventh rule and how that came about real quick. And I've heard some rumors that at the beginning of the show, somebody didn't actually watch all the episodes that they were talking about.
Hmm, yeah, I heard those rumors too, actually. Yeah, I was just, I was a reluctant podcaster. I wasn't really sure about the podcasting space. I didn't know if it was something I wanted to get into. I wasn't sure how it worked. I had heard people doing it. I wasn't, uh, I didn't understand that it could also include visuals and not just audio. So my understanding of podcasts was limited when I first got into it because I used to think of podcasts as something you listen to on your iPod, right? And and so in my brain, a podcast was directly connected to an iPod. And so obviously that's a narrow, way of looking at things now. It seems easier, it seems obvious in hindsight for me now, but at that time, not being familiar with the space, I thought it was an audio only thing that you listen to on those devices, and so I didn't see the growth in the space, which became, the Joe Rogan experience and all of the above, where it's much more dynamic than that. And so my understanding was limited. And so when I was first approached by it, I was really reluctant by it. Like, what are we going to be doing exactly? And I don't, audio only. And what are we going to be talking about? And is there even an interest in watching Star Trek with people or, and all of those questions, I had, and Aaron Eisenberg, my late great partner, he was like, just trust me, it's going to be great. It takes a long time, it takes a while to build up your base and to build up your platform. But, after a year or two, I'm like, a year or two. And here we
He
are.
almost lost you right there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought this was a fast commitment, a year or two. And I'm like, oh my God. And so, yeah, here we are 6 years later, 500 episodes in,
Hmm.
it's been a lot. So, um, yeah, I'm glad I was talked into it by Aaron. He used reverse psychology on me. It was very smart of him to do. He appealed to my defiance. And what he did was he said, "Yeah, I heard that I know you're a hermit, Cirroc, and you don't like to be out in public, but we should do a podcast." And I'm like, a hermit? I I didn't even hear the podcast part. I just heard that first. I
That's
was,
funny.
I was like, who's saying I'm a hermit? Is that what the going analysis of me is, that I'm hiding from everyone. I'm not hiding from anybody. I'm willing to be out there. So that's basically what it came down to.
That's cool. And I have gone back. I've gone back and start and just kind of watched some of the older episodes to see how how it's progressed, and it has progressed, as you said, a lot since the beginning. And I didn't realize that free for alls and things left unsaid were not something that was a part of the original, you know, theme of the channel. What what inspired the creating of the free for all and actually getting like people like us, your fans to join in and review the episodes with y'all?
Well, Ryan and I thought that it would be good to engage with everybody and hear what everyone's opinions and thoughts are. I think it's more of a conversation than it is us trying to just lecture to people about what things are. It's a conversation. And and it's also Star Trek is an observation. And just like observations, you see, people see different things, and well, I was watching the third baseman, and you were looking at the outfielder, and it's like we're seeing the same game, but we're observing different things, and and sometimes we all may observe the same things, but I think the nuances in what people bring to their perspective is also important because I think everyone has their own life experiences that they look through the lens of. And because of that, you're going to get different perspective. You're going to get people who see it from, um, their own personality point of view, and that is as whatever they identify as. And so that's going to be the lens that they see things through, and therefore they'll have a completely unique, sometimes, observation or perspective or analysis or point to make or something you can derive from an episode. And I think that's what makes Star Trek amazing. I think because it can appeal to so many different people who can extract extract and extrapolate, what they want to use as something that's valuable to them.
Exactly. Well, and I'm not going to, name the episode or anything like that, but I'm all I can say from my personal experience, our most recent recording we did, I was iffy about actually coming on because it is a subject that I was like, yeah, I don't really want to get into it. But my reasoning for doing this is I wanted to hear the other members' perspective about that topic. And I was glad I did because it really, yeah, it was a great, the most recent one was a great one. They're all good, but this one is exactly like you said. I wanted to hear someone else's opinions and perspectives on it. So yeah, that has been good. And if you accidentally or something say that I did not say Shatner, I said Kirk overacts. So if you say Kirk overacts, you will get a talking to from Walter Koenig.
Yeah, Walter.
I
Uh,
was
Salty
I was
Walter.
not expecting that day because I was, and all of you guys knew was going on. I'm just sitting there like, okay, I guess I stepped in it and didn't realize it.
Well,
Not badly, not badly, but
we can bust, we can bust each other's chops every once in
oh
a
yeah,
while, and it's always done out of fun. But
oh it was.
ultimately, the real thing that I think Star Trek is what makes it a good thing is when you approach it from a perspective of non-judgmental. If you can be non-judgmental, if you can accept people for who they are and what they are, and move on from there and get to problem solving and working towards, the betterment of people, then I think that's what we stand for in Star Trek. So even on our show, we might disagree, we might bust your chops, and we might have a laugh, but ultimately nobody's judging anybody for their
Correct.
perspective and for what they
Mhm.
believe and see. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was fun. I just was sitting there like, oh, okay. I
Now,
was like,
now, Walter likes giving people a hard time. That's he loves doing that.
oh, it was, as somebody
Well,
told me one time in the live chat, hey, if you can get a talking town do by Walter, that's awesome.
yeah,
And I'm like, you're right. I
yeah.
get Chekhov to say something to me. Just I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm just going to ask. I think maybe one or two more questions about. And I just want one thing I want. It's about DS9 specifically, and it's true. It's when I've watched DS9, you know, it is as clear as day that you and Avery Brooks had a real father son relationship on screen, but I'm pretty sure you also had that relationship continued, after the camera stopped rolling and into the real world.
Yeah, yeah. I love Avery, and I always will. Um, yeah, he's he's like a father to me. He always will be, and I'll always love him like a father. Um, yeah, he's been there through my ups and downs in life, through my immaturity and maturity, and through all in betweens. And he's been a steady rock for me, a foundational pillar, and somebody who has led by example, um, just by how he lives his life.
Cool. Yeah, I we could talk for hours about him, and I'm not going to do that to you. Um, but yeah, from what I've heard in the past, he sounds like a phenomenal person to have worked with. Um, I'm pretty sure he came into your life at the exact time that you needed him to be there.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he came into. I mean, I was really at a vulnerable point at that particular point in my life, going through stuff personally with the family. But he stepped in and filled those shoes and steered me right. Was always being a guidance to me, both in just regular life and professionally, in every way that you can be a guidance to somebody. He was for me, and so yeah, I will always love him. We've maintained our connection, and so that's it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, so here's the last question I ask everybody. What Star Trek technology do you wish existed today?
I mean, I would like to get beamed up. I think beaming would be great. I mean, if you can just transport from here to there and instantly, I can only imagine, how nice it would be to be able to travel for, the afternoon to go see the pyramids and come back.
Hmm.
Um,
Agreed.
that would be amazing. And I think it would be revolutionary as far as changing the landscape of the world. Um, I think there's a lot of other ones that are great. Um, for medical, would be the tricorder. It would be something that would
Hmm.
improve medicine in that capacity. I think that would be really handy as well for advancement of people. But Star
Yeah,
Trek has invented so many things, and one by one they start to become real. And so I wouldn't be surprised if all of them become real at some point or another.
I agreed. I agree. Well, Cirroc, I just want to say, if you have anything you want to say about the seventh rule, like a plug for it or something, you just go right on ahead.
Yeah, tune into the seventh rule. Come join the family. We are all encompassing. We embrace everybody. We love to hear people's perspective, and it's a real big family. That's one thing that has been the treasure of this experience for me. Not only growing closer to my um, co-hosts and being close with Ryan and Melissa and Aaron, we all grew closer together. But everybody else in the family that joined our group, even those that don't show up, whose names just get read out, they're they are a part of us. And when we see each other at conventions, there's that special bond that we have, that special connection, and I feel honored to have been a part of, building that kind of a family.
Hmm. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for welcoming me into the seventh rule family. And I think I will be hanging around for quite a while. So, thanks for your time today, Strock, and I hope you have a rest of your evening.
Uh, Thanks, Chris. Wish you success here with the transporter room. Many more episodes to come, and go along for the ride as I did. It's a fun journey.
It is. It's been fun. So, all right. You have a good evening, sir. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
For as little as $5 per month, you can gain early access to the full ad-free versions of all interviews, plus additional exclusive content by joining Patreon.